Hi, the psychologist Robert Emmons says there are three aspects to gratitude. The first aspect, he says, is to acknowledge gratitude intellectually. This is important because often when we go through life, we have what's called a negativity bias, looking for what could go wrong as a way of staying safe. This can create a sense of fear that can often hijack our consciousness. And that's where taking a moment to stop and to intellectually acknowledge the reasons for what makes us grateful is important for the general sense of happiness in our brain. It reminds me of a quote from Chesterton in which he says, "The test of all happiness is gratitude." So this aspect of our happiness being tied in closely to gratitude is seen in so many research. Even Arthur Brooks, who's a behavioral scientist at Harvard, talks about this, that people that have a higher ability for gratitude also are people that have a higher ability for happiness. The second aspect of gratitude that Robert Emmons talks about is to recognize it willingly, that the source of gratitude is actually from the outside of self. For gratitude to be whole, he says there has to be a source outside of you towards whom you feel grateful. Chesterton talks about that as well. In fact, the quote that I said, "The test of all happiness is gratitude," is a part of a longer quote, and I felt grateful though I hardly knew to whom. G.K. Chesterton goes on to say, "Children are grateful when Santa Claus puts in their stockings the gift of toys or sweets. Could I not be grateful to Santa Claus when he put in my stockings the gift of two miraculous legs?" We can thank people for birthday presents of cigars and slippers. Can I thank no one for the birthday present of the birth itself? So again, he's pointing at who am I being thankful towards? This is important because often when we have somebody to be thankful for, that is the space where we find relational attunement, where gratitude is not just something you feel in your own mind, it is something that helps you connect with another person. That deepens that sense of gratitude. And when that happens, there is a deeper emotional appreciation for the sense of thankfulness. Some of us may wonder, but what if I don't feel that emotion? What if I don't feel that emotion of being grateful, of being thankful? This reminds me of Paul. Paul in Philippians says, "Do not be anxious." This is Paul writing while he is in prison. He says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." So this is Paul in a prison where there is really no reason to be thankful, so to speak, but he still present your requests with thanksgiving to God, right? Because when you present your requests with thanksgiving to God, it shifts the brain out of this fear center to gratitude. In the human brain, there is a small part called the amygdala, which the psychologist Basil van der Kolk calls the smoke detector of the brain. When there is any kind of danger, the amygdala detects it and immediately raises the level of adrenaline and cortisol in our system so that we can quickly act to get out of danger. The amygdala shifts the control away from the cortex, which is the executive center, towards the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is fast. It can act quickly, but it doesn't think rational. Thanksgiving, in a way that helps us to relationally connect, shifts the control of the brain away from the reptilian brain towards the prefrontal cortex. So Paul, as he's in prison, says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." So when we, with thanksgiving, present our requests to God, the control shifts away from the reptilian brain towards the prefrontal cortex, which helps us to connect relationally, to think rationally. And then he says, "The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ. So when we relationally connect with God, which is the second aspect of thanksgiving that Robert Emmons talks about, then that helps us to have God's peace in our mind. When we are in this place, gratitude is not just a switch to turn on when things go well. It's not just about everything is good. It's also a light that shines in the darkness. So that's the secret that Paul talks about. When we are able to channel our anxiety in prayer with a posture of thanksgiving, and we are able to connect relationally with God, we have God's peace because God becomes the safe presence. All anxiety is a sense of not feeling safe. When we have a safe presence around us, that calms or takes us away from a place of anxiety towards a place of peace, allows the prefrontal cortex in our brain to be in control, which is that place of relational connection and love. So when we do that, that is where gratitude is not just about being happy for good things. It is also something that is shining a light in those dark places. And then gratitude becomes a form of resilience. There is a writer called William Law. He lived in the 17th century. He says, "There is no state of mind so holy, so excellent, so truly perfect as that of thankfulness to God." When we are thankful to God, then God's peace, as Paul says, when that sense of gratitude guards our mind in a place of peace, then our anxieties and things that distract us away from God will not have power over our mind. And that is why he said, so all of that to say, gratitude has three components: acknowledging it intellectually, recognizing it willingly that the source of gratitude is outside, and we connect with God in that space of gratitude. And that gives us that deeper emotional appreciation, because as Paul says, when we connect with God in the midst of our anxiety, that's where God's peace guards our hearts and minds. A sense of thankfulness makes our mind holy, so to speak. All of that to say, this is a video I wanted to share today. Until I see you in another video, bye for now.